So today we're taking a look at the MXR Joshua Ambient Echo pedal. There's an awful lot going on with this pedal, despite its relatively small real estate. We've got 6 dials, but each of these dials has an extra 2 settings that we can access via a kind of second tier parameter setting. And so in effect we've got about 18 dials going on. There's also a couple of extra buttons, so we've got an awful lot to get through. I'll put timestamps and chapters in the video so you can navigate it as you see fit. Without further ado, we'll jump straight in. Okay, so I've got the pedal plugged in. I'll take us through each of the dials and their primary functions to start off with. And a lot of these are fairly commonplace on delay pedals, so I won't spend too long on the more obvious ones. But on the top left here, we've got our delay, and this is the time of our delay. So all the way to the left gives us 50 milliseconds, so kind of slapback sound. And all the way to the right gives us a full second or 1,000 milliseconds of delay. Underneath that we got our regen. This is the amount of repeats we get, so all the way to the left will give us one singular repeat, and then all the way to the right gives us infinity repeats. The division here is the rhythmic subdivision of the repeated note that we get, dictated by the tempo. We can also actually access a tap tempo if we hold down the bypass switch for a second. Obviously these two lights come on. This is now a tap tempo. And if we leave this alone for 5 seconds now, it will revert back. It'll take us out the tap tempo function. You can also just hold it for another second and it will also do that if you need to get back quicker. So that's now given us a tap tempo, and that's kind of overridden where that dial is until we tweak that again. Lastly, we've got mix. This is just how much wet signal we've got going on. We can get slightly higher than unity gain if I just a little bit above. So nice to kind of have that function there. I'm going to leave it quite high for now just so we can really hear the character of the delay. Here we've got our mod. So this is a side chain modulation to the repeated note. So all the way to the left gives us a very subtle kind of chorusing effect. And then so bring that in more. And all the way to the right gives us a fairly extreme vibrato kind of sound. So that's what that pedal's doing. I'm going to dial that back out for now whilst I demonstrate what the voice dial does. So this is a octave. We can either bring in an octave up, 2 octaves up, or octave up, 2 octaves up, and a sub-octave as well. So just around about halfway, I think. In fact, I'll demonstrate without first, sorry. So if that's our standalone delay tone. If I bring it just around halfway, we can hear that first octave creeping in. There we go, it's just sticking out a little bit there. Now we get our second octave around about the probably 2/3 mark. Hear that popping out, and then as we dial that up further, we're going to get our sub octave coming in there as well now. So scope to bring in a lot of different octave sounds there, and we can tweak these further with those secondary parameters as I mentioned before. Last thing I'll mention, we've got our second delay accessed by the top button there. That's a blue one, and at the minute if I just change that, it sets the same subdivision as the first one so we won't hear it. So now I've got our second delay in, and again obviously we can do an awful lot to tweak that in these secondary functions. And lastly then we've got our trails. That's the red LED, and most people are probably familiar what this does. Basically if you play a chord and then bypass the pedal, it will continue to fade out, whereas if you turn it off, you just get a clean cut there. So obviously you can kind of use that however you see fit. So now if we take a look at the secondary functions, or the first set of secondary functions I should say, these are to do with controlling the parameters of that second delay, and we access these via holding that Echo 2 button at the top right of the pedal. Top left of the pedal I should say, sorry, and then tweaking the dials accordingly to kind of change the parameters of that second delay. First up though we get actually a visual reference, and this is changing the LED on both the bypass and the on the Echo 2 button here. Change it from a hard flash when it's on the right to a soft flash on the left. Obviously if you're on stage and you want a tempo reference, that hard flash is going to be really useful there. I'm going to leave it on soft flash for now just to let the camera chill out a little bit. The regen is the feedback of the second delay, so if you just want one repeat, turn that all the way to the left. We can hear that second delay disappeared very quickly. If you want the same number of repeats on each delay, you can hear they peter out together. If you want more of a kind of global feedback function where rather than having the same number of repeats each, because obviously the quicker delay is always going to disappear quicker if the one has 4 and the other one has 4, the 4 quick ones will disappear before the 4 slow ones. We can actually turn on what's called symmetrical regeneration, and we can do that by holding that Echo 2 again, and as we turn the mod dial, we'll see the trails button flash there. This now puts on symmetrical regen, sorry, so that they will essentially have a global feedback and fade out at an even rate. So it kind of auto compensates and adds some delay to that second, adds some repeats to that second delay there. So they kind of peter out together. Next up, we've got our division, and this is controlling the tap tempo of the subdivision of that second delay. So if let's tap in a tempo for a second. So that's going to set my primary delay tempo there, and now I'm going to change my secondary delay to a dotted eighth. I'll have the primary one staying at a crotchet. We can get our U2 edge kind of tones, which I think, to be honest, was a big influence on this pedal, given the style of pedal and probably even the name to some degree. So that's controlling the rhythmic subdivision of our secondary delay. Next up, we've got the mix of that. So if you want the second delay to be quieter than the first delay, we can turn that mix down. And this is basically in parallel with the first delay. So if you want it to be as loud as the first delay, 100% is as loud. You can't make it louder than the first delay. Anything else below that will be a percentage of volume. So half as loud as the first delay will be 50% on the dial. And then again, if I want to max it out, that's how you would kind of bring them both in together. And then finally, on our voice, this actually allows us to dial in a stereo rig if we are connected in stereo, if we've got a stereo lead going out. I don't at the moment, so actually all it's doing is bypassing the second delay. But if I was connected in stereo and I had 2 amps going, it would send one delay to one side and one delay to the other, if you do have a kind of stereo rig going on. So that's our second tier of secondary functions accessed by holding that Echo 2 button down. So now we'll take a look at the next set of secondary parameters, and in the same way that previously we were pressing the Echo 2 and spinning the dials, now we're going to be pressing the trails button and spinning the dials, and that's going to open up a set of controls that allows us to adjust the side-chained modulation, reverb and compression. To start off with though, we've got another visual reference, and I'm going to hold that trails button down, and as I spin this delay dial, we'll now see that that trails has started to flash at the internal clock, so that's our quarter note. Very useful just to have that tempo reference if neither of your delays are set to a quarter. That's always set to a hard flash because its primary function is as a tempo reference. Moving on, we've got our mod now, and what this does, it allows us to separate the kind of global control of the speed and depth of the modulation, meaning that we can control them independently of each other. So if I hold this down now and turn my mod all the way full, this is the depth maxed out. Let me just bring in some of that clean signal as well, actually, of the mod signal I should say. So we can hear we've got a lot of depth going on there. If I want to change the speed now though, this dial is independently changing the speed. So we've got a much slower speed, but still the higher depth now. You can hear that as the delay repeats there, the pitch is kind of shifting a little bit. If I want a really shallow depth, for example, and then I want the speed faster, I can hold that down, take the depth down to 0 and max out the speed. And then if I wanted the depth on full as well, again I hold the trails button one more time, bring that to full. And I've got a really extreme kind of modulation. I imagine most people will be using it more subtly than that. I just wanted to kind of showcase the scope of parameters you could change there. I'm going to dial that completely out for now though, just so you can hear everything else that's going on. So next up we've got the voice control, and this is introducing a low pass filter, which I think is really useful for any kind of delay pedal. Basically what it means is it's taking out some of the top end of your delay signal, means that you can play busier passages without the delay getting in the way. So if we have this all the way to the left, this is giving us a 12 kilohertz, which isn't that much of a low pass filter really. So if I play something busier, we can hear the delay kind of clouding over that. If I turn that up, we can go all the way up to a 200 hertz low pass filter, which is really going to give me a clearer playing field really to do busier passages. So really useful for making this not just an ambient delay pedal. I really like to see that anytime I'm not playing ambient and playing more leaked focus lines, I like to shelve a lot of the top end out of delays. Again, I'm going to take that back to hear all the top end in the delay while I showcase the other characteristics now. Next up on the mix, this is the sidechain reverb. So all the way to the left, it's going to take all the reverb out of the delay signal. So it's just a dry delay basically. As I turn that up, max it out, we can hear we've got our reverb added there. Now we're going to jump over to the regen, as this is the other control that affects that reverb. This is the decay of the reverb. So if we want a really short decay, again, hold that trails button, take the regen all the way to the left. It's a really kind of early reflection sound now. And all the way to the right, get a much longer tail. And it sounds like a little bit of a shimmer thing going on there as well actually. Again, I'm just going to take them round about to the middle now. And our last control here we've got, and I'm not sure how well this is going to translate on an online video with compression and things that gets added on an upload, but this is basically a sidechain compressor. And to my ear what this is doing, it's subtle, but I think this is basically acting like a ducking feature. So in the same way that you might sidechain a compressor to a vocal delay, so that in busier passages the delay ducks, and then in more sparse sections the delay is allowed to breathe a bit more, and we do the same on guitar as well. I think that to my ear is what's going on here. Again, I'm not sure how well this will translate on video with the compression that gets added, but if I turn this all the way to the left, I'm going to play a single chord and then a busier passage. So there's not much ducking going on there to my ear. It sounds like it's clouding up a little bit. Whereas when I turn this all the way to the right, this is increasing that threshold to the max now. Again, same thing. Sounds like a little bit clearer on the lead there. And the center position is the factory setting for that threshold as well there. So that's our second set of second tier options accessed by holding that trails button down. So there's just two more things worth mentioning about this pedal, and that is that we can connect either a tap tempo or an expression pedal via the CTR output here. If you're using an expression pedal, you can control all 18 of the parameters. So you would set the pedal to toe position, set one extreme of the parameters, pull it back to heel position, set the other extreme, and then you can sweep between those two sets of settings. If you've got a tap tempo, obviously you can use it as a tap tempo, but you can also use it as a freeze where it will keep the regen of whatever you're already delaying and stop anything else going in so you can play over the top of it. So if you did some volume swells, you could make like a ambient tone bed and then kind of improvise over the top of that. So just worth mentioning on there that you can also use those functions with this pedal. So that was the MXR Joshua Ambient Echo. If you've got any questions, do drop them in the comment section, and if you did enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe. Otherwise, all that remains to say is thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.